Hello everyone, welcome to CoHive. In this video series, we're going to be learning JavaScript from scratch with the help of ChatGPT. I actually created this outline with ChatGPT. It goes from left to right, from more beginner concepts to advanced, and then from top to bottom, exploring each one of those more in depth. For example, if we were to look at basic concepts, starts with variables, and then data types, operators, conditional statements, and loops. And each one explores it in more detail. Like data types are broken into numbers, strings, booleans, null, undefined, objects, and arrays. Operators are broken up, conditional statements, and loops. I've also let ChatGPT create an outline for me, text outline, and bullet points for each to make it more detailed. And here I have the outline for the basic concepts, for example, declaring variables. So we're just going to cut it out one by one. So now we're going to paste it to ChatGPT, see what it says, and we're going to be learning JavaScript like that. I just gave it a quick little prompt ahead of time. I said, you will be my JavaScript teacher. You are very helpful and clear with your explanations. You explain everything in great detail with many examples. Please start by teaching me about, and I'm going to paste this right here, declaring variables using let const, and let's put var in there, variable hoisting. Okay. So let's start reading and learning. Declaring variables in JavaScript is an important concept to understand because it allows you to store and manipulate data in your code. There are three ways to declare variables in JavaScript: let, const, and var. Let is a new keyword introduced in ECMA script 6, ES6, and is used to declare variables that are block scoped. This means that the variable is only accessible within the curly braces in which it is declared. Let is used when you want to reassign a new value to a variable. Const is also new keyword introduced in ES6 and is used to declare variables that are read-only, meaning you cannot change the const variables if you assign them like that. This means that the value of a const variable cannot be reassigned. It is important to note that the value of a const variable can still be mutable, meaning it can be changed, but the variable identifier cannot be reassigned. Var is an older keyword that is used to declare variables that are function scoped. This means that the variable is only accessible with the function in which it is declared. Okay, you can read the rest of it. I actually know JavaScript a little bit. Let's just go to code examples. Give me code examples explaining all this. Okay, it gave us some code. Let's copy this and paste it into Visual Studio Code. And let's run it one by one. So here in the first one, we are declaring an x variable. We say let, and then we say x, and then assign 10 to it. So we're making x equal to 10. And then here it says this is what's called a block scope variable with a value of 10. And then we are reassigning 20 to x. Okay. So then if we were to print this, console.log is a method in which JavaScript prints it to the console. So if we were to run this, we get 20 because x is 10 is x is equal to 10 at first, but then we reassign it to 20. And then when we console.log, then we get 20 because let variables. When you declare a variable with let, you can actually change it, reassign it at a later time. However, if we try to do the same thing with declaring a value with const, here we are saying y is equal to 30, and then later we're saying y is equal to 40. Now, if we try to run this, we're going to get an error, and it says assignment to constant variable, because when you declare a variable with const keyword, you cannot reassign it to another value. That's why in JavaScript, it is common to make your variables which are not going to change within your program and assign it with the const keyword. And now for variables which are going to change, use the let. And var is a bit of an older way of doing things, so modern programmers, I don't think, use var a lot. And if you were to declare with the z variable with var and say it's equal to 50, and then we can change it to 60, and then if we were to log this out, this works just like let. But here's the thing about hoisting. So hoisting is a bit, I mean, it's an interesting name, right? The thing with hoisting is you can declare a variable. So look at what's happening here. We're trying to console log a, but then we're declaring what the a is at a later time. What do you think will happen? When we run it, we just get undefined. So what's happening is that JavaScript somehow understands that variable a had been declared as a variable, but its value is undefined. So this is called hoisting, meaning even though we're trying to log out and print a, and there's really nothing about a before this line, it still knows that a had been declared. This is called hoisting. So it's like, oh, it's almost like JavaScript is bringing it to the top or to the beginning. If we try to do the same with let, we get cannot access b before initialization. See? So this is kind of important when you're using JavaScript, because it's when you're declaring your variables, they all live in the scope of a block. A block can be like an if statement, a conditional statement, a function, and things like that. We're going to learn more about those, but for now, just know that such a thing exists, and then we'll move on to our next thing, data types. It'll all make sense as we go along. So we're going to say, explain to me in detail this with many examples. So now we are asking about data types. So these data types, is typing, we can read. There are several data types that you can use to store and manipulate different kinds of data. Here's a list of most common data types in JavaScript, along with some examples. For example, numbers. Numbers in JavaScript can be either integers, floats, decimal numbers, for example. Floats are decimal numbers. For example, if you were to say let x be 10, then it's an integer. It's considered an integer. And if y is equal to 10.5, then it's a float. Strings are used to represent text data in JavaScript. It's just regular text. You can use single quotes, double quotes, or template literals. This is what's called this little symbol right here, to create strings. Template literals allows you to create multi-line strings and to embed expressions within the strings. And then here is an example. Let's just copy and see what it does. So here we're saying x is equal to hello world, and it's declared with a single quotation mark. And the quotation marks has to be on both sides. And after each declaration, after each line, after each completed line of code, let's say, it is customary to put this semicolon in JavaScript. So this is string with single quotes, and y is equal to hello world. It's this string with double quotes. It is the exact same thing. And let z equals hello world. Let's actually do it like this. And it's exactly the same thing. It's just declared with what's called template literals. So here a variable is declared. We're saying name is John. The cool thing with template literals is that you can actually enter variable names in it. For example, here we say hello, and then if you use the $sign with curly brackets, And then if you were to print this, which is to log it out, greeting, you will see that it's going to say hello John. So a string with an embedded expression. So if you have variables and then you want to print it out, and your variables are always changing, right? But then you also want some information about that here. Like, for example, this is a greeting. Maybe you have an app that says when a user logs in, it's going to always say hello, but the name is always going to change. So it's pretty useful like that. Booleans. Booleans represent a value of either true or false. They are commonly used in control statements. For example, when you're doing an if loop or while loops, things like that. We're going to talk about those, right? To determine the flow of the program, for example, let x be true, let y be false, a boolean with a value of true, a boolean with a value of false. Just think of the boolean as like a coin flip. It just keeps track of a thing. You say, for example, maybe you're counting something, maybe you're going through a list, and as long as you're still going through the list, you say, well, okay, the situation is true. And once you're done with the list, then you say it's false. So this is kind of like a little bit of like a switching statement where it allows you to keep track of certain things and control the flow of the program. Null value represents an intentional absence of any object value. It is generally used to indicate that a value is intentionally empty. For example, you can say x is null. Why might we want to do that? Well, maybe you want to declare x, and you can declare it as 0 or something like that. But what if it is not a number? Maybe x can be a number. Maybe then later it's going to change to a string. Null just means that it is declared, but it is empty, like it doesn't really have a value. Undefined kind of works similarly, but the value represents uninitialized variable or an absent value. It is generally used to indicate that a value has not been set or is not yet known. For example, let x. If you just say let x and without using the equal sign, then it will be undefined. If we were to log it out, as you see, it says undefined. Objects. Objects are used to store collections of key value pairs. You can use objects to represent real-world entities with properties and methods. For example, here it says let and then an object named person. Then we put the equal sign, then we open up a curly braces. And then we say first name is John, and this structure has to be the way it is, right? Objects are always declared like this, meaning pay attention to the colon. And then this is the key, and this is the value of the key, and then a comma, and then the next key, which is the last name, and then the value of that. So the first name is John, last name is Doe, age is 30, and then objects can also have functions. Get full name is a function which returns this dot first name plus an empty space. Remember, this is a string declared with a single quotation mark. And you can actually concatenate these with plus signs. And then we say this dot last name. The reason why this exists, it's a bit of, I guess, difficult to explain. Maybe we can ask actually chatgpt. But from what I know, this just refers to this object. So when we say this dot first name, we're saying, well, this object's first name, this object's last name. And then if we were to copy this real quick, and if we were to run it, as we see, console log person.first name. Oh, and it's logging out. Person.first name is John. And person.get full name. Let me start again. So this is an object, right? It has 1, 2, 3. I guess we could say attributes or keys with values. It also has a function, which is assigned to get full name, and it returns the first name plus a space and then the last name. So when we console log person.first name, we're referring to this. So it will print out the value of that. This is John. When we're doing console.log person.get full name function, and functions come with this open and close brackets, parentheses, then it will return this dot first name, which is John, here we go, plus an empty space right here, and then the last name, which is Doe, right here. Okay, and then now arrays. Arrays are used to store collections of values. You can use arrays to represent lists of items, for example. We can say let numbers be, and arrays are declared with the square brackets. So this array is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's an array of numbers. You can also, here it's also declaring names, which is consisting of John, Jane, and Joe. Also it's mixed. It can be, so here we have a number, we have a string value, and then we have a boolean. Arrays are cool, I guess, because it allows you to keep a collection of items together. You can loop over them. You can access it through indexes and things like that. I hope these examples help you clarify different data types in JavaScript. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, let's just say, what does this mean with JS objects? Right? We were wondering. Okay, so it says that in JavaScript, this refers to the object that is currently executing the code. In the context of an object method, this refers to the object itself. Here's an example to illustrate how this works with object methods. This is the exact same example that we were looking at earlier. In the example above, it says this refers to the person object inside the getFullName method. As a result, this dot first name refers to the first name property of the person object, and this dot last name refers to the last name property of the person object. It's important to note that the value of this is determined by how the function is called, not by how it is defined. In other words, this refers to the object that is calling the function, not the object that the function is property of. I just want so you know, I've learned Python, and I'm pretty good with Python, and I know JavaScript somewhat. What I learned is that sometimes you just gotta take things, you can't really question, because the people who were writing JavaScript originally thought that it has to be referred to like this. Sometimes there's that's just that you just have to accept it. You just have to know it when to use it, and then kind of like accept it, I guess. That being said, we can move on to the operators. So I have typed in, please tell me more about operators, the arithmetic operators, comparison operators. Okay, with many examples. Let's see. Okay, as it's typed in, let's continue reading. In JavaScript, operators are special symbols that perform specific operations on one or more operands, values, or variables. Here's a list of most common operators in JavaScript, along with some examples. Arithmetic operators, used to perform mathematical operations. For example, let's copy this. So if you declare x to be 10 and y to be 5, and if you're printing out x plus y, then of course it's going to be 10 plus 5. X minus y is going to be 5. 10 minus 5. X multiplied by y, 10 times y, 5 is 50. X divided by y is 2. 10 divided by 5. Right, you get the point. Here's the modulus operator. This is the remainder. So if you divide 10 by 5, we get 2, but there is no remainder. So if you run this, you as you see, you get all the exact same values. So I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's to be able to do just basic math. But I just wanted to demonstrate. This is also called modulus in Python, but it's a remainder, right? If x were to be 11 and y were to be 5, 5 goes into 11 twice, which is 10. The remainder would be 1. And we get 1. Comparison operators. Comparison operators are used to compare two values and return Boolean value of true or false. These are pretty cool. Let's copy it. These are just ways to compare two things to one another, do something about them, if one condition is true or not. They're really useful. So if x is 10, then y is 5. Then if you were to say console.log x equals y, this will be false, because this is x equal to y? No, I mean 10 is not 5, right? X exclamation mark equals y is true, because exclamation mark equals means not true. So exclamation mark in this case means not. So is x equal to y? No. So not equal is true. Is x equal to y? No. So that's false. Is x not equal to y? Yes, it's not. So it's true. Equals equals equals. So this is just like equals equals. But this returns false, of course. But the difference between equals equals and equals 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 is, you know what? Let's come back to this. Okay, look, we're gonna talk about this here. Let's just finish the rest of it. X, this symbol, and y means x larger than y. Is x larger than y? Yes. So it will return true. X smaller than y. X is not smaller than y, so it will return false. X larger than or equal to y. Yes, it's larger or equal, it's larger. If it was to be equal, this will be true as well. X smaller or equal to y, that is false. Okay. And if we were to run this, you see that it does exactly that. I just want to get rid of these. So what happens is, let's say, what if x was a string 5? Okay, what will happen now? Is x equal to y? Well, they're both 5, but one is a string and one is 5. So let's just run it and see what happens. Okay, so the first one returns true. It says x is equal to y. The second one is false because it's not equal. You can actually get rid of that. And x equals y returns false. X not equals y returns true, because equals also checks for the type, the data type. And it's just, we have learned 5 is an integer and this one is a string. So equals is a bit of a looser equality symbol, and equals is more of a more strict one, which also compares the type. Logical operators. Logical operators are used to perform logical operations on Boolean values. Oh yeah, these I actually really like these. Okay. So and false. It says x. So because x and y are both false, so the result is false. X and y are not both false. Okay, see, I noticed something. So this is actually, so you've got to be careful with ChatGPT, right? Most of the time it is correct, but sometimes it makes mistakes. Because this operator and means either or, right? I mean, I'm sorry, both have to be correct. This x and y has to be both true for this to return true. Here it returns false. Why? Because one of them is false, so it will return false, and it does return false. But the ChatGPT, it said x and y are both false, so the result is false. But they are not both false. And if we allow GitHub Copilot to complete it, she says it is false because x is true and y is false, so the result is false. Because for this and to return true, they both have to be true, or they both have to be false, right? This bar or line operator is or. So this is and. So x and y. This is saying, and this one's saying x or y. So that's why it returns true, because either x or y has to be true. Yes. So the result is true. And not x just reverses whatever the x is. So x was true, and then not x reverses it, makes it false, right? But you also you can also do this. Let's say if, remember, x was 10 and y was 5. So we can say is either x, so we can say x is larger than 5. And then y is larger than 5. And then we're going to do the same thing here. Let's just forget about this. If we run this, this returns false, because is x larger than 5? Yes, true. Is y larger than 5? No. So therefore, they both have to be true. Since they're not both true, it returns false. Is x larger than 5? Yes. Y is not larger than 5. But this is or. Either one of these statements has to be true, and since this one is true, then it returns true. If we were to change it to 3, then they both would be larger than 3. And if we run this, then the first one will return true as well. Assignment operators. Assignment operators are used to assign a value to a variable. For example, we have already seen this, right? The equal sign. So we say x is 10, x equals 10, y equals 5. If x equals y, then x will also be 5. And if you were to print it out, it will say 5. But check this out. You can also do, let's copy this. So when we do x plus equals y, then x is now 15. See, chatgpt is again making a mistake. Actually, let's print all of these out. Plus equals y. So the first one is 5. Second one is 10. Why? Because x is 10. X plus equals y. X is incremented by y. Well, if x is incremented by y, shouldn't it be 15? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So the thing is that, see, we're changing x. We say x is equal to y. So x is now 5. So this x is now 5. We have changed it. So x plus equals y is 10 because x is 5. And then we plus equal it to y, meaning we add 5 to it because y is 5. Then it prints 10. Okay. X minus equals y minuses y from x and assigns it to it. So here x is 10. We take away y, which is 5. Then x becomes 5. And then when we do x multiplied equals y, then we're multiplying 5 by 5 and equaling it to x. So x then will print 25, 5 times 5. Now x is 25. 25 divided equals y. Then we're dividing 25 by 5 and then assigning it back to x. And when we print x, then we print 5. X remainder equals y. Then would be 0. Because x is now 5, y is 5, and this is a remainder operator. There is no remainder, it's 0. X is divided by y, and the remainder is assigned to x, so x would be 0. You were the console, log it. At the end, it prints 0. Okay, let's continue with conditional statements. If and else, switch, and ternary operators. So I just asked ChatGPT to explain to me in detail conditional statements. We just pasted it with many examples. This is its response. Conditional statements are used to execute different code blocks based on certain conditions. Here's a list of the most common conditional statements in JavaScript, along with some examples. If and else. If The if statement is used to execute a code block if a specified condition is true. The else statement is used to execute a code block if the condition is false. Let's just look at an example. We're declaring two variables, x and y, 10 and 5 respectively. Then we say if x larger than y, then we console log the number x plus, this is the concatenation operator, right? Remember from the printing the name. Then we say is greater than y. But pay attention to the syntax. When we're doing if statements, we say if, open parentheses, then we put our condition inside. After that, we open a curly bracket, then we write our code inside of it. After that, we put a semicolon, because we could actually put we could actually do this if statement make it do more things, as long as it's within those brackets. But once the bracket is closed, then this if statement is concluded. If x is larger than y, then we print this thing. And then if it is not, then we say else. Then we open another curly bracket, then we say x is not greater than y. Alternatively, it does this. Let's copy and see it in action. If we just simply were to run it, 10 is greater than 5. So what happens here? So we've declared two variables, right? And then it comes to the if statement. It checks. Is x greater than y? Is 10 greater than 5? Yes. So then it logs 10 is greater than 5. This is exactly what it did. So it completely ignores the else. Then it goes to the other if statement and says, is x smaller than y? It is not. Then it goes to the else part and then prints 10 is not less than 5. And I just wanted to say that, remember we said we can actually let a conditional statement do more things. For example, we can log out another thing. For example, I'm inside the if block. Let's actually comment this out. And also, let's talk about the commenting as well. In Visual Studio Code, in any kind of IDE where you're executing your JavaScript code, if you put two slashes after one another, then you can write anything you like, and it's not code. It's just text for you or explanation or something like that. Alternatively, let's get rid of this. Alternatively, if you want to comment out the certain lines of code because you just don't want them to execute, in Windows you can use Control/ again to comment it out and comment it back in. So once it's commented out, it's not going to execute. It is the reason. Do you notice this red squiggles underneath here? This means there's an error. It says expected. Something is expected. The reason is look, I put a quotation mark here, another one. So this is this part is good, but so there's an extra quotation mark. Once we delete it, then there is no problem. Anyway, what we did was that we said if then checks this condition is true, then these two things are going to happen now. And we're going to ignore the else because x is larger than y, right? We print this, both 10 is greater than 5 is printed, and then I'm inside the if block is printed. This also makes it clear what a block is. Like in this case, this is a block, at least as long as far as JavaScript is concerned. There's also the switch statement. The switch statement is used to perform different actions based on different conditions. The switch statement evaluates an expression and compares it to the values of each case label. If a case label matches the value of the expression, then the code block of that case label is executed. The default label is used as a catch-all case when no other case label matches. Okay, let's look at the example. What's happening here? So we're declaring a variable called day, which is Monday. Then what do we say? Switch. And then we say day. Case is Monday. Console log, today is Monday. And if this is true, break. Break is a way to break out of some kind of a loop. So it will break means it will this thing will stop. If this is true, it will stop. Case Tuesday. Okay. So it seems to me the switch statement compares multiple conditions. Let's actually just copy and see. I'm not very familiar with this. What will happen when today is Monday? Okay. So Monday it checks. Okay. So switch takes, I guess its syntax works like this. In brackets, you say day. And then, is it Monday? Yes. So then it prints today is Monday, then breaks. So it doesn't even check the rest of it. Okay, what if it was then Tuesday? Okay, today's due is Tuesday. You know what else we can do? Just to show log console checking if it is Monday. Let's do it to each and every one. Checking if it is Tuesday. Checking if it is Wednesday. Checking if it is some other day. So let's go back to Monday. Now when we run it, it says checking if it is Monday, because it came to here, said, okay, day, is day Monday? And it said, yes, it is. So then checking if it is Monday, right? This executes first and then says today is Monday. The rest of the code does not. If it was Tuesday, that is, when we run, it says checking if it is Tuesday, today is Tuesday, because now it checks, is the day Monday? No, it's not. Then goes to the next one. Is it Tuesday? Yes, it is, and does this. So if this was Wednesday, then it's going to do this part. But what if it was Friday? When we run it, then it says checking if it's some other day. Today is some other day. Okay, pretty cool. So that's the switch statement. Let's talk about ternary operator. It's the question mark and the colon. The ternary operator, also known as the conditional operator, is a shorthand way of writing an if statement. It consists of a condition followed by a question mark, a value to execute if the condition is true, and a colon followed by a value to execute if the condition is false. So in this case, you can think of the question as the if statement and the colon as the else. If you go back here, the question kind of does this, colon does this. It says it's a shorthand because this is really cool in my opinion. We declare two variables, x is 10, y is 5. Let greater be, so now we're going to declare another variable here called greater. But we don't know what the greater is going to be because it's dependent on this conditional statement. Don't pay attention to the parentheses here, because that's where the condition goes. So then we check this condition. Okay, we say x larger than y. Question mark, meaning this is replacing the if statement, right? Is x larger than y? Is it? Yes, it is. Then greater will be x. Else greater will be y. I hope this is clear. So we're declaring a variable. Let's actually copy it in the Visual Studio Code and talk about it. So we're defining two variables, and then they're going to define another variable, but this variable is going to be defined based on a condition. In this case, it's going to be x if x is larger than y. And this reads like this. Is x larger than y? That's what the question mark does. If it is so, then greater will be equal to x. then this colon does. If it is not, then greater will be equal to y. And the lesser here does the same thing. Is x lesser than y? Question mark. If it's so, then lesser will be x. If not, or else, will be y. If we run this, we see that in the first case, greater, because we're printing out the greater, is 10. Why? Because x is larger than y, right? So then it's equal to x, which is 10. Here in the lesser case, is x smaller than y? Question mark. No, so it cannot be x. Then, else, it's equal to y. That's why it's printing out 5. Yeah, I hope that was clear. Let's check out the loops as a last thing for, what did we say? Basic concepts. Look at it. We're almost done with it. Okay, I'm just doing the same thing. Explain in detail loops with many code examples. Let's see. Okay. In JavaScript, loops are used to execute a block of code multiple times until a certain condition is met. Here's a list of most common loops in JavaScript, along with some examples. For loops. The for loop is used to execute a code block a specified number of times. The for loop consists of 3 optional expressions, enclosed in parentheses and separated by... let's just jump to the code example. It'll be clear. I mean, you can read it. You know what? Let's read it. The for loop consists of 3 optional expressions, enclosed in parentheses, as you can see here. It starts with for, then in parentheses. This is the first one. This is the second one. This is the third one, separated by semicolons. The first expression is executed before the loop starts. The second expression is the condition that is checked before each iteration of the loop. The third expression is executed after each iteration of the loop, for example. So we say for, then we're declaring let I is a variable here. It could have been anything you wish, really, written as long as it's not an illegal variable, meaning there are some rules defining variables. For example, variables cannot start with a number, for example. But it's pretty loose in any case. It's pretty relaxed. So anyway, let's go back. So we say for, and then we say, okay, we say now I is going to be 0. And then we say, now this is the condition part, right? As long as I is less than 10, then we're going to increase I by 1. This plus plus does that. What plus plus does is increases I by 1. Also, so we're going to come back to this, but I just wanted to point out the fact that we're going over this pretty quickly, but anytime you have a question, you can keep asking more questions to ChatGPT. For example, such as what is plus plus, question mark. So in JavaScript, plus plus operator is used to increment a variable by 1. It is a shorthand way of writing x equals x plus 1. So if x was 0, then it's 0 plus 1, so x will become 1. So you're incrementing it 1 by 1. That's what plus plus does. And also there's negative negative does the opposite. It reduces by 1. Okay. So if x is 0, and then if you log out plus plus x, then output becomes 1. And then if y is 10 and y plus plus, output is 10, y is incremented after the value is returned. Anyway, for this particular example, where are we? I plus plus is going to increase it by 1. So essentially what we're doing is that we say I is, in the beginning of the for loop, I is 0. And as long as I is less than 10, we are going to execute this code. And then after each time of execution, we're going to increase I by 1. Yeah. And then here in the second example, we do the exact same thing. We say I is going to be 0. As long as I is less than or equal to 10, now we're actually going to include 10 in this case. I plus equals 2. We're going to increase I by 2. If we were to copy this, paste it here, let's comment this out. So we check out the first for loop. What do you think will happen? In my opinion, it will first print 0 all the way up to 9. It will print 0, 1, 2, 3 all the way up to 9 and not 10. Let's see. And that's exactly what happened. So in the first for loop, just iterates over it, right? It says for when I is 0, is I less than 0? Yes. Okay. Then execute this code. Print I. What is I? 0. Then print 0. And then increase I by 1. Now I is 1. Come back here. Now we don't do this anymore. I is now 1. Is 1 less than 10? Yes. So then print 1. Increase I by 1. Now I is 2. Is 2 less than 10? Yes. Then print 2. And then so on and so forth. These are the for loops. While loops. The while loop is used to execute a code block while a specified condition is true. The while loop consists of a condition followed by a code block. The condition is checked before each iteration of the loop. So, you can, so let's see. So we first start by declaring I to be 0, and then it says while, and a condition, while I variable is less than 10, then print I, and then increment I by 1. Let's just copy this, paste it here, run it, and this does the exact same thing. I just want to show you that we could have also said plus equals 1, and it prints out the exact same thing. If you remember from earlier, what did we say it was? Assignment operators. Plus equals, minus equals, right? Yeah, and this was the answer to our question. So I guess we'll end the video here. We covered all the basic concepts. It's pretty cool. I hope you enjoyed it. Let's just quickly ask ChatGPT, is there anything else I need to know about loops? Okay, see, it's continuing to give us more information. Says, yes, there are a couple of other concepts that are important to understand when working with loops in JavaScript. Do-while loops. The do-while loop is similar to while loop with the exception that the code block is always executed at least once, regardless of the condition. The do-while loop consists of a code block followed by a condition. So the condition comes after the code. For example, here in the while loop, where was it? We check the condition immediately. Whereas in the do-while loop, we say do, and then we definitely, at least for the first time, execute the code. And then we do an action on whatever the conditional is, and then check the condition. Yeah, so if you were to copy this, it does exactly the same thing. It declares I to be 0, and then says do, and then says do this. Then increment I by 1, only while I is less than 10. But the fact is that it will automatically print this before checking the statement. So that's why I was saying it'll always at least run for one time. So it's essentially doing the same thing. And then there's also the break and continue statements. We've kind of seen the break statement. The break statement is used to exit a loop early. So remember earlier, where was it? Yeah, there was a break with the switch statement. So instead of continuing the conditional, if this is true, which in this case was, then we completely just break out of the situation. Okay. So that's what the break does. The continue statement usually skip the rest of the current iteration and move on to the next one. So so the break kind of stops everything. So then it's done. There is no more computation going on. But the continue does a similar thing to break. Says it explicitly. So it says, do not continue with whatever comes after me, but then go back to the beginning. This is useful with loops. Here in this case, it says print the numbers 0 through 9, but skip 5. So what do? We declare a for loop. Now we assign I to be 0. Then we say, well, as long as I is less than 10, increment I by 1, 1. But then, if I equals 5, right? And remember 3 equals signs, it has to be an integer in this case to match 5. Not a string. If you were to do equal, then it could I can also be a string, right? But anyway, so if I at some point I starts from 0, but at some point it's going to be equal to 5. If when this so we're using a conditional inside the for loop. When this condition is true, then we say continue. So when we say continue, this console log I will not work. It'll skip it essentially. Here in this case, it'll print 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a skip 5, then 6, 7, 8, 9. But in this case, it's using break. Let's copy this. So what do we say? Let's comment this out for now. Let's look at the first loop. When we run this, it prints 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and when I is 5, it continues. So continue says, stop right here, but don't continue the loop, but go back to the beginning. Right? Here with the other one, with the break, the exact same condition is here. So whenever the I ends up being equal to 5, then it breaks. It just ends. So then in this case, we'll only get prints up to 4. What happened? Oh, sorry, my mistake. Run it again. Yeah. So what happens? I0 prints 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. When it's 5, it says break. Just stop the slip. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying these videos. Please leave a comment with your thoughts, suggestions for future videos. I'm really enjoying making these videos. It's also helpful for me as well, learning new things, brushing up on old topics. Like I said, this video is not to really, I mean, you can do this yourself, right? This is to inspire you to use these new AI models for your benefit, to learn, to code, to build things, to flourish. With that said, I will see you in the next video, and take care.